Okay, from now onwards, we will have a series of lectures on induction machines. All the important aspects of induction machines every electrical engineer is expected to know. In the first lecture today, we will introduce the topic. We will talk about introduction of the subject, history, how was it developed, then construction, some basic principles. Now, historical development, if you look at it, it was basically the inventions of Tesla in 1880s who postulated what is meant by the polyphase AC. So, it is he who said that it is possible to get rotating fields created by stationary windings with polyphase excitation. Of course, almost same time Ferraris in 1885 in Italy, he showed that torque is possible due to rotating fields. Subsequently, Dabrowski invented the squirrel cage rotor, and all these developments have subsequently have led to the development of a workable induction motors. And this has been in existence for more than 100 years and very widely used as motors. Now, one may like to know why we should study induction motors, just to highlight its importance. Okay. They are certain very special. One is they are major workhorses in industry. Go to any industry, you find something is moving, rotating, and source of all those movements will be normally three-phase induction motors. So, that is why we call it as major workhorses in industry. Then they consume over 70% of electricity generated in the world. So, bulk of the generated electricity is consumed by induction motors. So, obviously, you must know how they consume, how best they consume, how best you can see that it is utilized. That means, we should know about it to evolve best energy use, because with the present crisis of energy, you have to see that whatever the electricity generated is better utilized, and it is induction motors which consumes them, so it consumes them more optimally with energy efficient manner. Now, the last point is, you find them in very widespread use. You find their use in fans. Wherever you require nearly constant speed, you use these induction motors. They are used in fans, they are used in blowers, they are used in pumps, they are used in compressors, they are used in crushers, and so wherever you require a near constant speed, where you do not require much of a variation in speed. Okay. And where are they used? So, these are the motivating factors in which you must study about induction motors. Now, where are they you find them? You will find them in some form in domestic appliances. So, then they are not necessarily three-phase, they are mostly single-phase induction motors. You find them in refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, and wherever you find fans and so on. You find them in agriculture and irrigation. All the pump sets which are used for pumping water in the agricultural sector or for irrigation purposes are induction motors. So, wherever you want to lift water through pumps, it is going to be the induction motors. In fact, it is said that to eliminate water scarcity and the water wars between states, it is best to link up rivers, and it is proposed to link up in India the river from Ganga to Kaveri by lifting water somewhere near Patna, because after all Gangetic belt is at a lower level and Deccan plateau is at a higher level. So, you lift up water, so you will leave very, very large induction motors, and then you of course you recover some water as the water flows down, recover some electricity as the water flows down, and that is one of the plans. So, you know how important these motors are, okay, because you find them in a lot of entertainment gadgets. If small ones, of course, they will be single phase, but if it's the bulk of the large sectors, you use 3-phase. You invariably use them in most of the construction industries, dewatering and movements and cranes and lifts and so on. So, you find them there. And nowadays induction motors are getting more universally used for electric traction, because 3-phase drives are being used wherever electric trains are used. That is the recent trend. Then there you find them in heavy machineries, wherever there are movements they are being used. Then induction motors are very widely used in mining applications. Mining, again, they are fans, blowers, compressors, they are also material handling purposes, they are used. And they are used in metallurgy. Metallurgy means you will find them in aluminum, copper, steel making. So, in all these applications you find the induction motors. To continue, you find them in defense applications, in several environments. You find them in petrochemicals, oil rigs. While the drilling you used often DC motors, but pumping you use induction motors. Then you find them in machine tool applications and manufacturing sectors where you want to make. Again, in the case of movements for the tools. You find them in several process industries, whether it's chemical process, where you want to convert materials from one form to another. You find them in marine applications in ships, and you find them in what is HVAC, that is heating, ventilation and air conditioning, because that is one of the major energy guzzlers. HVAC means heating, ventilation and air conditioning applications, and they are used mostly in commercial complexes. In commercial complexes you require to condition the atmosphere. So, whether it is winter you require heating, and in summer you will need air conditioners. Then you find them in lifts, hoists, cranes, etc. So, you find that these motors are one of the largest type of electromechanical devices presently in use. Now, what is special about it? Next, about these motors. One is they are always asynchronous, operate at asynchronous speed. They do not operate at synchronous speed. This is one special feature of these 3-phase induction motors. Another is they are very rugged and they are brushless, especially when you use squirrel cage. There are no brushes. That means you have a very minimal maintenance problems. Okay, and they are the cheapest machines made for the same power. That is very economical, that is cheap. And it is very easy to make, ease of manufacture, especially squirrel cage, they are very easy to make. Therefore, there is high degree of automation. That means you can have a minimal human interface in the manufacture of these motors. You can have automated windings, you can have automated machining, you have automated rotor making and so on, with minimal human involvement in the making of these machines. Therefore, that is one of the special features because of which it makes it cheap. Then they are highly standardized. Standardization also reduces cost because you are you don't have to make machines of different designs. Designs are standardized, and they are not tailor-made machines. Okay, you know that standardized garments are often cheaper because they have mass-produced, unlike in a tailor-made garment which is made to the size of the concerned human being. Okay, so the tailor has to make it, right? So these are standardized, okay, mass manufactured, and they have a very low maintenance. In fact, you install a motor, maybe you can forget about it for years. Maybe with a little, maybe you have to just to look it good, you may have to often clean it, wash the dust and so on, but generally they are very rugged. Very few engineering products are so reliable as three-phase induction motors, and they are also made in the largest numbers in the world. If any electrical machine, if you look at how many pieces are made per year, the largest numbers made are induction motors, okay, unlike any other machines in terms of numbers. Now, who are their competitors? One has to look at the competitors for three-phase induction motors and why the other competitors are getting knocked out. Okay, so the one competitor, you see, there are no competitor, no one to compete for near fixed speed drives till today. Wherever you need a near constant speed with a very marginal change in load, induction motors are the solution. Okay, nothing can, but one can question whether it is suitable for variable speed, because the DC motors are have been for years or decades being preferred for variable speed applications, because of that versatile commutator which always makes it suitable for a independent control of voltage and flux, and that makes it a very good variable speed device, that is the DC motor. Now, nowadays induction motors are also competing, because now with the invent of power electronic devices, power electronic switches, you can have variable frequency inverters. You can change the frequency. Earlier it was not easy to change the frequency. Therefore, with the advent of these variable frequency inverters, which make induction motors knock out DC motor. So the DC motor industries are getting into applications which are slowly getting shrunk. Okay, shrinking applications for DC motors. So induction motors are competing very, very effectively on adjustable speed drives or variable speed drives. Okay, now we have seen constant and variable speed. Then there are also others trying to compete with induction motors. They are called permanent magnet motors or switched reluctance motors. They are also competing for adjustable speed drives because of the advent of high quality permanent magnet, and also advents in signal processing which is possible in to electronic control of motors. So these two are competing, but they are still in development stage. Very limited applications it has seen the market, and so we can say that since it is in development stage, still a long way to go. Okay, so induction motors for variable speed are still the leaders for adjustable speed applications. Okay, now another new application which induction motors are finding nowadays are renewable energy applications. Induction generators, that means the same induction motor can be used as generators, because you know that still bulk of the generator are synchronous machines. So induction machines operated generators are also being increasingly used for renewable energy applications. So this is this renewable energy applications, wind energy, small hydropower, induction generators are being used. Okay. So these are the situation of induction machine versus other machines. Okay. Now this is the annual production of different machines in India in terms of power rating. Okay. Induction motors of LT means low tension, that means low voltage motors, which are typically 415 volts ratings, 3 phase. The typical annual production is around 3,900 megawatts of total capacity of the motors which are made. Okay. If HT motors is around 1,271 megawatt. HT motors may be high voltage, maybe 11 kV, 33 kV motors. Okay. So this is the statistics of these motors. Whereas DC motors is around 370 megawatts. That is, you can compare the production capacities of these motors. And of course, the synchronous generators, AC synchronous generators is 3,332 MVA. That is the capacity of machines made in India. And these are rotating machines, but about static machines, distribution transformers are 11,345 MVA. That is the quantum of power distribution transformer made in India, and power transformer is 41,319 MVA. So these are all as per the statistics provided by IEMA journal. IEMA means Indian Electrical and Electronic Manufacturers Association. Okay. So this is a typical case of manufacturing potential available in India. Okay. Now, next is what has been the developments in these motors in technological efforts. Okay. Now, there has been progress in designs. The progress in designs is, for the same frame, same size of the machine, was giving you 7.5 horsepower in 1898 to 1903. That is the range. Okay. So that motor was 7.5, same size, but through improvement 1905 to 1914 it went to 15 horsepower, the same thing. Then 1924 to 29 it went to 25 horsepower, the same machine. So you can see the improvements which have taken place in the designs, so that you can go to there. Then 40 to 56, that period it went around 40 HP. 61, 66 it went to 60 HP, and after 66 it has 100. I don't know the recent, it must have gone to a little higher than that. So you can see almost 15 times increase in power from the same size. This has been possible because of improvement in materials, improvement in insulation, improvement in conductors, improvement in thermal designs, improvement of cooling. All these factors have helped in the, this is just to give you historically how the development have taken place through continuous improvement of design and research. Okay. Okay. As far as construction of the machine, okay, it has a stator which is having 3-phase winding. Stator has 3-phase windings in slots, and slots are made in the core, and core is housed in the frame. So this will be the construction of the stator. Okay. So stator is, it will have 3-phase windings in slots, in the core, housed in frame. Okay. And the rotor, there are 2 types of rotors. One we call it as a squirrel cage rotor, and another we call it as a slip ring rotor, slip ring or wound rotor. And what is the squirrel cage rotor? Squirrel cage rotor will have bars which are housed in slots. Slots are formed in the core, and these are shorted by rings on both sides called end rings. So that is, they called a squirrel cage. The bars, conducting bars in slots formed in core, shorted by rings on both sides. Okay. Now, the other is the slip ring or wound rotor. There the rotor is almost like the stator. It will have three-phase windings. It will have three-phase windings as in stator, but ends are connected to slip rings. End of the windings goes to slip rings, and these slip rings are mounted on shaft, okay, with brushes. Slip rings are on the shafts with brushes. So we can, let us see how it looks like. We'll see the stator now. Just someone keep it here. So we will now see the stator. Here. Can I keep it on this? Tilt it down. Okay, this way. Right. So you'll see some aspect. These are unwound stator. I mean, this is what you see outside is a frame. Okay, and this is an unwound. Windings are not placed. You find the slots here, and you have the slot and tooth alternating. Okay, and this is the stator core, and this is laminated stator core. So they are stampings which are stacked together to form the length. So you will see the length of the core, and then you have the slots. There are several slots here, and then you place the windings, three-phase windings in these slots. Okay, and of course this core is housed in the frame which is outside, and then you bring it out through a terminal box. Okay, now let us look at the different rotors. Okay. We have two rotors which so we'll see a squirrel cage rotor here. Now this is the squirrel cage rotor. You see the bars here. They are generally skewed to compensate for the effect of slotting in the air gap fields. So you see all these slots which are shorted on both sides by the end rings. Okay, and this is the core, and which is again laminated. And this whole structure, this core is now mounted on a shaft. Okay. While the stator core is fixed inside the frame, rotor is mounted on the shaft, and you will see there are no brushes here. It's a brushless, rugged rotor, and there are two types of rotors. One is called a die-cast rotor, other is called a brazed rotor. Die-cast rotor, you pour aluminum liquid into the slots and you cast it and then machine it. And a brazed rotor, you put copper bars, they are manually done, and then brazing is done by the end rings. Okay, so you will have all this. This is a typical squirrel cage. Now let us look at a slip ring machine. Very heavy, I think. Okay. Now this is the slip ring. So you will find there are three-phase windings which are placed in the rotor. Okay, there are three-phase windings, and these are the end windings, which are thick ones, at the end. Now these the end of these windings are brought out to different slip rings. Of course, there are large number of slip rings here. We have nearly 8 or 9 slip rings. Okay, for 8, sorry, it is 9. These are special machines, but generally about 3 slip rings are the minimum you can have. So you will notice that each of the ends are connected to a particular slip ring. If you look at this terminal, it is connected to this slip ring. through insulated. If you look at this terminal, it goes to this slip rings here. So maybe I'll turn it here. If you have this terminal, it goes to this slip ring. So each terminal goes to one particular slip ring. There are several slip rings, and then the brushes will touch the slip rings. Brushes are stationary, so you will have a separate brush arrangement like that. So this way, and at the brush they are short circuited. There is no short circuiting here. You must understand, while the squirrel cage is automatically short circuited, here short circuit is done externally by short circuiting the terminals of the brushes. Okay, or you can also connect some external impedances to the brush, so it is shorted through impedances. Okay, so that means in the slip ring machine you can control it from the rotor side, whereas squirrel cage you cannot do any control on the rotor side. So this is just to sensitize you on the physical look of the induction machines. We have seen the stator, we have seen the two types of rotor, which is wound rotor and other is the squirrel cage. So this is a typical three-phase windings, and three phases are brought out. You can't see the terminals, but they are brought out like that. Okay, now having seen the construction, next aspect is to look at the theory. What are the basic concepts involved in the working of these motors? Okay. Obviously, you must understand between interaction between stator and rotor. Right, that's what it happens. Okay. Now, if you let us look at a schematic which we have drawn here. You all know that stator is three phase here, SA, SB, SC windings, carries currents ISA, ISB, ISC. Here it is star connected, it could be delta connected also. These are phase currents with voltages VSA, VSB, VSC. So this is the three phase stator windings, and they are connected to the terminals outside, let us say ABC terminals, and you put a three phase supply to here. So this is generally the schematic of the stator side. This is the stator, three phase winding connected to three phase supply. Okay. Now on the rotor there could be two possibilities which we have seen. One is the slip ring rotor or a squirrel cage. You don't use both, right? And it interacting through an air gap. The stator rotor, in between is the air gap where most of the magnetic fields are present. So slip ring you represent by three windings RA, RB, RC, again shorted externally through the brush. So these are three phase rotor windings. Okay. Whereas squirrel cage we can represent like this. Let us say there are bars. I put out 6 bars here for simplicity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars, and ended by shorted. Okay. So you have, this is the schematic of a three phase motor. That means stator has three phase windings AC, SB, SC, and maybe in star or delta, and ABC are the line terminals connected to three phase supply. ABC are what you bring out in the terminals, line terminals connected to three phase supply, and VSA, VSB, VSC are the phase voltages, that is voltages across each phase, and ISC, ISB, ISC we have denoted as phase currents, the three phase voltages and three phase currents. Now on rotor we have seen two rotors. One is slip ring rotor, we have RA, RB, RC are the three phase windings, and it will carry a current IRA, IRB, IRC. Let us assume the currents carried as IRA, IRB, IRC, three phase currents which you know are induced currents, not impressed currents. Okay, So these are the three currents that are induced here, okay. And in short circuited rotor, which is quite common because most of the slip ring machines are short circuited, so terminal voltages are 0. This is what you must know. Terminal voltages are generally 0, you don't apply. Let us look at the squirrel cage rotor. They are again multi-bar rotor. Now there could be several bars, need not be, it can be say 6 bars, 10 bars, 12 bars, 50 bars, doesn't matter. But they can be transformed to a 3-phase. We can transform, you can always have, so they will be actually multi-phase. Rotor, a squirrel cage can be considered as multi-phase, okay. So this we can say multi-phase. They are not 3-phase, but you transform into 3-phase. Say they are symmetrical, as in a wound rotor for our simplicity. So we will say each it is 6-phase, you convert it to 3-phase like that. Now we will say that also will have an equivalent RA, RB, RC windings which are shorted, right. So for our analysis purposes, this squirrel cage we will say can also be considered like this, just for analysis. So they are inherently they are not, every transformation that you do in mathematics or science is to simplify your method of analysis, right. Therefore this is one way you can do it, just to understand, okay. Now another important thing, a squirrel cage assumes same number of poles as the stator. This is one of the important features, you please note. A squirrel cage, if the stator is 4-pole, squirrel cage assumes 4-pole. Stator is 2-pole, it will assume 2-pole. If it is 6-pole, it will assume 6-pole. So you have this important aspect of thing. So we can consider, as for simplicity, a 6-bar 2-pole rotor, just for simplicity, okay, for our analysis, okay. Now you already have studied, about air gap magnetic fields, okay. So we see the stator field, let us look at, that is Fs. A stator field is created, you have a balanced currents in the 3-phase windings, cause rotating field, all this you are aware, balanced currents in the stator windings cause rotating field with a peak value of Fs at the synchronous speed, which is omega electrical radians per second, and this omega is nothing but 2 pi f, where f is the frequency of supply, right. This is the speed of rotation of the stator field, okay. And these 3-phase currents can be written as ISA is √2 times IS into sin omega t, ISB is √2 times IS into sin omega t minus 2 pi by 3, and ISC is √2 times IS sin omega t plus 2 pi by 3. These are 3-phase currents. So you have, we can call it as ISA, ISB, ISC. These are the phases, right. So, a 3-phase currents which are going into the windings, which produces rotating field in the air gap, Fs. So, the peak value of that Fs, okay, it is sinusoidally distributed, neglecting all harmonics, is given by 3 by 2. 3 by 2 is because they are 3-phase. It is, you have already seen rotating magnetic field, it is 3 by 2 of the peak of each phase. What is the peak of each phase? Is 4 by pi kW NSE by P into the current. Current is, peak of the current is √2 IS, right. √2 IS is the peak of the current. So this formula you are aware of, right. This is the peak of the MMF in the air gap produced by the stator currents, right. So that will be decided by the stator current, okay. Now whenever there is a stator field, there will be a reaction of the rotor. Next, okay, next is the rotor reaction, right. Now the rotating air gap field induces balanced voltages and currents in the rotor windings, isn't it? When inducing currents will also be then balanced, which in turn cause another rotating field with a peak of Fr. So you find it inducing currents will also be balanced. Inducing currents are balanced and they produce another Fr. Now rotor speed is omega r electrical radians per second. We take the rotor speed to be omega r electrical radians per second, and we define a slip. A slip is the difference between the synchronous speed and actual speed, omega minus omega r by omega, which is also given by synchronous speed ns minus actual speed n divided by ns. And these are a definition that we call it as a slip, that is the difference with which the rotor is rotating with reference to synchronous speed. So these are the standard definition which we always use in induction machines, that is a synchronous speed produced by stator MMF, rotor MMF, and the rotor speed, this is omega r electrical radians per second. So mechanical will be, that will be we have to multiply by 2 by p, okay. And now so ns is the synchronous speed in rpm, revolutions per minute, mechanical, and n is the rotor speed in rpm, again mechanical, revolutions per minute. Please note down that we consistently have this type of definitions, so don't confuse electrical and mechanical, okay. Rotor spins at what speed? SNS with reference to stator field. Rotor spins or rotates at SNS with reference to stator field. It will not be at the same, when S is 0, it is stationary with reference to stator field, nothing will be induced in rotor. So induced rotor frequency of induced currents or voltage will be SF. So this is an important factor. So induced rotor frequency is SF, right, or what we call it as slip frequency. This is the slip frequency. That means if you run it at synchronous speed, there is no currents. If the rotor is stationary, it will be same as the stator frequency, okay. So rotor field rotates at, next is you go to this, rotor field rotates at s omega electrical radians per second or SNS rpm with reference to rotor. So the rotor field, because it carries SF frequency, the field it produces will be s omega radians, electrical radians per second with reference to rotor, okay. So is it clear? So we know stator field at omega, rotor at omega r, and the rotor field is s omega with reference to rotor, is s omega with reference to rotor because it carries SF frequency, okay. Next, therefore you will notice that both stator and rotor fields rotate at synchronous speed. Both of them are at synchronous speed. They are stationary with reference to each other. Therefore, that is one of the conditions for torque production. So they cause, since they are not aligned, they will be at some angle, they cause the resultant field. So the combination of Fs Fr, we have seen, you know, if there is an Fs here and Fr here, there will always be a resultant FSR. We always say that. So this FSR, which also rotates at synchronous speed. So there is a net, if you look at the, if you observe the rotor, observe the air gap, you don't see 3 fields, you see only 1 field, which is the net field produced by the combination of stator and rotor currents, okay, and which causes, now this, what will this field do? So let us forget about now how it was produced. Let us now, so in the air gap there is only one rotating field, that is FSR. what will it do? It will induce voltages in all the windings in stator and rotor. This FSR which is rotating will induce voltages in stator and also voltages in rotor, okay, and it will also produce a torque in the shaft, right. So this resultant field is the one, because there is a energy stored in the air gap which will now produce, it will react to the shaft, it will react to the windings and cause voltages, react to the shaft and cause a torque, okay. That is the basic principle of energy conversion. So that torque that is produced in the machine will be a constant times Fr into, let us say, BSR, because we call it could be FSR, into sine delta R. This is an expression, some constant into Fr into BSR into sine delta R. BSR is the peak of the flux density, and Fr is the rotor MMF. Now we will prove that this delta R is 90 plus phi R. We will see little later how is it 90 plus phi R, and where phi R is the impedance angle of the rotor, okay, and the torque is given by K Fr BSR cos phi R, which is impedance angle of the rotor, and normally rotor is considered resistive at low slips. At low slips it is mostly resistive, and the phi R is 0, and then you will have an expression for torque at low slips is like this, that is, it is proportional to rotor MMF into resultant BSR, okay. So for fixed V and F, if you fix V and F, phi SR is constant and BSR is constant, and the torque is given by a constant into Fr, because BSR is constant. Net air gap flux per pole is generally constant for a constant voltage and frequency, because V by F is constant. After all, V by F is 4.44 into phi. So phi is constant because all others are constant, and Fr, the rotor and peak MMF, is proportional to rotor current, and that rotor current at low slips is proportional to rotor voltage, which is proportional to slip. Rotor voltage is proportional to slip at low slips, so IR will be proportional to slips. So at low values of slip, the torque is generally linearly proportional to slip. So if you plot a torque versus slip, it will go linearly at low slips. This is at low slips, right. This is one of the, afterwards what happens we can see later, because afterwards this phi R becomes important, that is the impedance angle of the rotor. So with the next lecture we will look at actual MMFs produced by the rotor MMF and how it will impact on the performance of the machine.